that's what you see. So Possum, when he's in the woods, hallucinates a friendly alien, whereas Brock is super paranoid, and so he sees evil aliens. Remember? Anyone else?
All right, thanks.
Also,
what's
all in the
Lundgren
back.
like? What's Dolph Lundgren like?
Friendly via phone, and that's all I worked with him.
That was it?
That was second unit.
Seems like a nice guy, I guess.
Yes, though it is not very comfortable when he throws you into a wall, and then when that gets cut, it feels like it was really pointless to get thrown into a wall.
Yeah, Tim was kicked in the face by Dolph. And then we were like, we should get that on camera, and he did it again.
That's what I was gonna do, sorry.
Another question?
So why? I mean, talk
Why
to
the
me
face
about,
kicking?
tell where the inspiration come from, why a horror film?
Well, we've always been fans of horror films, and we wanted to create sort of a throwback to the 1980s horror genre, have that kind of feel, but we wanted a little more substance to it, no pun intended. And so then there's kind of like a lot of layers to where the inspiration comes from. Despite what some people in the town of Willits will tell you, there is a bit of methamphetamine abuse going on up there. And from what I've seen, I feel like in some senses, though it's obviously exaggerated, that's kind of what crystal meth does to people. Also, always liked the idea of the setting of a marijuana grow for a horror movie. It seems like a little more of a twist on the kind of old little town horror flick, you know, Friday the 13th, things like that. And then there's also some commentary we were trying to get in there about, you know, people always really sort of wanting to do the right thing, but sometimes are very misguided. And so, you know, our main character, Brock, played by Bill Sage, the whole film, he thinks he's protecting his family, and that's what he's trying to do, but clearly the results don't really add up. And I think right now we're seeing a lot of that in the world.
Yeah, actually, Bill Sage, who played Brock, and I talked about that a lot on set. It was during the election back when it was ridiculous to think that Donald Trump would win. And we were just talking about how it's all about perception and what you see and what you understand as being real is what you act on. And so everyone in the movie is the good guy, and yet there are a lot of victims in this. And that's for sure happening everywhere. Except in
Were there any funny or happy accidents or coincidences?
the whole Dolph Lundgren thing was a happy accident.
Yeah, also a funny one. The reality of you know, small filmmaking is sometimes you go into a project and things change when you're on the ground. And can I just say that Dolph was a late addition to the script? Is that a thing
No,
I can
you
say?
can't say that.
Okay, Dolph was the first edition. Yeah, so yeah, no, all filmmaking is filled with happy accidents. You know, we're in Shreveport, is where we shot much of this film, which is not actually in the Emerald Triangle. And you know, you get boxed into certain locations, ideas, and then you have to creatively solve problems. And I think the film is filled with excellent creative solutions to strange problems. Like, for instance, we had about 30 feet by 30 feet of forest to shoot that whole movie in. And I think we made it look like a bit more trees than all that.
Also, Happy Accidents was going to be the title originally, and then we decided people might not get it, so.
And also, as odd as it is how little forest we actually had, we also somehow had very little clearing. So the whole campsite is the same place that the weed garden is.
Yes.
Made through movie magic. Two very different locations. Also, those weed plants appeared in Pineapple Express. They're kind of celebrity weed plants.
So why not film it around here where you're from?
Well, actually, glad you brought that up because we're trying to get another project going that we want to film around here. So that we will have written to kind of make more sense here. You know, as is, we would have loved to shoot in Willits since that's where it takes place. Trying to make Ithaca look like Northern California seems like it would be as hard as making Louisiana look like Northern California. So
Yeah. Plus, it was January. Wow, this thing just got hot.
Yeah, it was January, and a month before we shot, we thought we were shooting in Georgia, then it was moved to Louisiana. And I was thinking, like, I don't know about the weather. My dad, who's here, was in basic training in Louisiana and said that was the coldest cold he ever felt, ever, and it was, he almost died.
I almost perished because of the elements. Yeah, it's, you know how people are like, oh, but it's a dry heat? Louisiana has a very wet cold. It's strange. It gets in your bones more than this stuff. There was one other happy accident I was going to mention, but I can't remember. So.
did it involve wet cold? Because that doesn't sound happy.
It wasn't happy. That was not a happy accident.
All right. Well, any further? Oh, wait.
Well, can you give us just like a sense of what this Ithaca idea is?
Yeah. Why don't you give a little explanation? You're better at it.
Are you casting?
What?
Are you casting for it currently?
You're all in the movie.
Right now, I don't know that it will be interesting. No offense. You're all beautiful.
And back to one, people.
Okay, take two. It's no comedy, more thriller, creepiness of an insomniac who gets hypnotized to treat his insomnia. He can't tell the difference between dreams and reality. Begins thinking his wife is cheating on him, and
With an alien.
does.
I'm kidding about the alien thing. If you want for a film to be, if you want for a film to be shot in Ithaca, if everyone could talk to Svante about tax breaks, then we'll be here. That's all.
And then you will hear the synopsis in full.
Yes.
And if you have $1 million, never mind bugging Svante. Thank you, guys.
Oh, wait. There's one more over here.
I just had a question. You just mentioned the new project would be without comedy. And so I was wondering if you could say something about the comedy in this film, because it seems to me you're doing homage. It's scary, it's social commentary, but it's also funny, and that seems a pretty crazy line to walk. So I wondered if you could just say something about kind of choosing the language of the film itself, or how you, why mix all those things? Like what's that about?
Well, there's a few reasons. One is that I find when writing, I have to really restrain myself not to put humor into it. But another reason is that I find the effectiveness with both horror and comedy, when they're juxtaposed, can be really helpful. That you know, if you're in this kind of laughing space where everything feels comfortable and good, then the horror of it can be a lot more shocking. Whereas if you have a movie that's an hour and a half of just horrible things, gore going on, I think you get kind of desensitized to it. It loses some of its impact. And likewise, I think if you have sort of a scary or grotesque moment, then it feels really good to get some of that comedy as a relief. And I think that in writing anything, the commentary kind of comes out because it's just what we see in the world around us.
Yeah, it's kind of a film technique that you can also relate to other elements of filmmaking, where like when in sound design, an explosion in movies can only be so loud. So if you watch an explosion in a movie, you'll see it gets really quiet right before the explosion. And so you do the same thing internally, where you make people laugh and then it calms them down so they can be scared again. Otherwise, you can only get so scared. And we don't want to do that next time. Okay, now thank you very much.
All right.
It's been a great
Thank you.